We are off. Hello, my name is Brad Bodnerchuk, and welcome to the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, where we discuss everything hospitality, from the food on the plate to the teams that make it happen and the community that drives this industry forward. On this podcast, we sit down and chat with some of the most exciting, inspiring, and innovative minds that make up one of the most dynamic industries that there is today. And today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Janna Bishop from Grain. Welcome to the show, Janna.
Thank you for having me.
I am sat here on this Thursday morning wearing all black in a shop full of flour dust.
Yeah, you are. Truly you are.
Not probably the smartest thing I've ever done in my life, but you know what? It's going to make for a great photo op at the end. And contextually, for you guys that aren't listening, are listening on iTunes, you can go onto YouTube and check out the space we're in right now, which is really cool. And I want to say thank you so much. I will say thank you probably 45 times during this interview, but I want to say thank you for, one, making time for me, and two, inviting me into your space. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being interested. We're really happy to have you.
Awesome. So the first question I generally dive right into and kind of bike spokes off of that is the what, the where, the why, the how, and the when. So why you and why Grain? How did this all come to be?
It's a good story, actually. I grew up around the prairies, near farms. A lot of my family is involved in farming in some way.
Okay.
And when I was 18, my mom married a farmer in Saskatchewan. I grew up in Calgary. She moved to Saskatchewan and I moved to Vancouver. So she married a farmer, Bob. He's kind of our icon. He's our guy that we talk about a lot, because he's an amazing farmer and he's been a farmer for his family has been in farming for many generations. And I started to learn more about the business of farming, not just the schedule and the challenges, but really the business. How does it work? How do they sell grain? How does it all work? And where does it all go? And who eats it in the end? And so that kind of formed my adolescence, late adolescence, and my early 20s. I was learning about this really organically. I had nothing to do with agriculture. I had nothing to do with food. My background is in clothing design.
Oh, okay.
Couldn't have been more separate.
Right.
But I was absorbing it. And I met Shira also very organically through my job. Her husband worked with me. And I knew she worked in food. She had a job at JJ Bean at the time. She was doing their wholesale sales, selling to all the restaurants. So she was in and around the restaurant scene in Vancouver constantly. She knew a lot about food. She has a food blog. She's very passionate about eating well and eating smartly. And she's a vegetarian and she's an amazing cook.
Right. And sorry, Shira is your partner in the business.
Shira is my business partner at Grain. So throughout kind of conversations with Bob about the business of farming, he would come to Vancouver and visit me. We would go grocery shopping, for example. Okay. And he would see products that he grows on his farm, things like chickpeas and lentils, in our grocery stores locally for prices that were astronomical compared to what he was getting paid. Okay. And for quality that he considered very poor. Okay. And so he would just mention these things to me, and he would talk about how his products were being sent to Africa and Asia and Europe, and crazy. The products that we were eating, they may have been from Saskatchewan or they may have been imported from California or Mexico or China, even though Canada produces so much of these products. And at the same time, I was bringing home dried lentils and dried chickpeas from his farm and cooking them and eating them. And just really, haphazardly, Shira and I were in a conversation, and I was learning more about her and she was learning more about me. And I said, oh yeah, well, my family grows chickpeas and lentils. And her eyes just lit up. She couldn't believe that we were growing these products in Canada. Right. She's a West Coast girl, grew up on the islands, has no connection to the prairies, or had no connection. Right. And so I brought her some. I brought her a bag of chickpeas and a bag of lentils, and she soaked them and she cooked them. And she said, these are the best dried goods I have ever tried. They are so different than what I've been eating, and they don't cook the same. I don't digest them the same. It's a completely different product. And I took it all for granted originally. I didn't know that these were really special. So fast forward a couple years, we were spending more time together socially, and she was no longer at JJ Bean. She was starting her own kind of consultancy
Okay,
and food business. And I thought, if there's an opportunity, now is the opportunity.
Right.
I have the farm connections. She has the food industry connections and the background in food.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a time for us to talk about this, it's now.
Right.
And so I brought it up one night. I said, I think people are looking for a connection to these products. I think it's time for people to care about dry goods. I think there's a story to be told here. And I think that there's a quality piece that isn't being delivered.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that our farmers are in an unsustainable position right now where their product isn't being valued. It's being exported.
Mm-hmm.
It leaves this really big opportunity for corporations to take advantage of the situation if we don't have a connection to those food sources. So I kind of laid it out like that. Shira loved the idea. She's a really creative person that loves new challenges and definitely was looking for a new challenge at the time. It was very perfect timing. And we started kind of sketching out what a business would look like and what we really wanted to see and what we wanted to accomplish. And that was in the fall of 2013.
Wow.
And I think we sold our first bag of chickpeas August of 2014.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And now it is August 2018.
Wow.
So are we celebrating a bit of an anniversary?
I didn't even realize until now.
Like right this moment.
Right this moment.
Right.
Yeah, we should. Towards the end of the month, maybe we should plan something. 4 years of selling chickpeas.
So cool.
Yeah.
Now, are there any other items that we grow in Canada, whether it be the prairies or any other region, that you are now aware of that you weren't before, that maybe others aren't as well? Like, are any other hidden gems that we're just sending abroad that you know of, or have you kind of discovered them all as far as the dry good world?
Well, I'm trying my hardest to discover them. I think our farmers are innovating now more than they ever have. So things are coming online. And also as climate is changing, we're able to do more, which is scary, but people are kind of making the most out of it. Quinoa was a big one for us, and it's something we constantly educate people on. It's just known as a South American product.
Yeah.
But Canadians have been growing it for about 30 years.
So cool.
And most of it was being swallowed up into the food manufacturing industry. And it was a really devalued product. Like, it wasn't making any waves on the natural health food scene or anything like that.
Right.
But as quinoa gained popularity, and I feel like we played a role in that in kind of giving Canadian quinoa a brand and talking about it and doing what we could to elevate that whole category of agriculture. And so that's been a really exciting one. And people sort of value the quality and the origin, and they connect to it a lot more, I think, especially because it's now a food group that has a lot of controversy surrounding it in South America. Mm-hmm. I mean, chickpeas is a basic one that people just take for granted all the time.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm sorry to interrupt. I've never, ever until right now just even pictured a chickpea growing in Canada. I don't know what it is. Is it like our frigid environment, or I don't know why?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's associated as a Middle Eastern kind of ingredient or a South Asian ingredient, and so we just don't think about it. It's not a cultural food for us. But yeah, Saskatchewan grows a lot of chickpeas.
Explain to myself and the viewers and listeners that might never have seen a chickpea in its like quote unquote raw form, like on the farm.
Yeah.
What does it look like? Like, I know what corn looks like, right? I know what kale looks like. So what does, like, is it a stalk of chickpeas? Is it a tree of what is it? Again, pardon my ignorance.
No. It's pretty cool. I just actually came back from the prairies and I got the chance to see a lot of our products growing in their really freshest form because it's not harvest time yet. But they've really, they're really growing. So chickpeas grow in a pod, like peas.
Like, okay, cool. Yeah,
like green peas. It's just a larger pod. It's beautiful and sweet. And when they're green, they're just delicious.
Okay. So they are green to start off with.
They're green to start off with, and they dry on the field, and that's when they get harvested. And same with lentils. They grow in a pod. They're sweet. They're
so cool.
Magical. Yeah.
I'm sure there's someone that's listening to this right now and they're either frustrated or laughing at me that I said something like a stalk or a tree or something. But hey, I just didn't know. And I think in ignorance, there's bliss. So
Absolutely.
and I learned something new today, which is amazing. So how is it for you now being in this space? Mentioning your background was design, so more like fashion. Was it easy for you to pardon the pun, but like change hats? And are you more passionate about what you do today than you were 5 years ago? What you were doing then?
Was it easy? Absolutely not. There was a time when I first left my job and I would come here to work every day, most of the time by myself because we were smaller then.
Yeah.
And I literally had to learn how to do everything that I needed to do.
Yeah.
I had to make phone calls. I watched YouTube. I Googled everything.
Yeah.
I did not know how to do anything. I did not know how to pay GST or get GST. I didn't know how to, do payroll. I didn't know how to do anything that you need to do as a small business owner. And that was really tough. It's never not been tough. I think that's the life that entrepreneurs choose, especially in the beginning. Am I more passionate about it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I need to feel in control of what I'm contributing and what I'm producing. And I love what I do here. I love our team. I love our farmers. I love our customers passionately. And I love the access I get to all of those different aspects of the business.
So when you say customers, are you thinking end user? Are you thinking like your wholesale customers or clients?
Yeah, so our business is evolving. It started purely as a supplier to businesses, so to restaurant owners, to grocery stores. Right. But we're changing that. We're trying to reach more individual customers and home bakers and home chefs and people through our website and our pop-up shops. And so, yeah, when I say customers, I love our restaurant partners. I love going into restaurants and seeing what really creative chefs are doing with our ingredients. And I love eating in restaurants. I love, I mean, I think you have to be part of this industry. I love food. So definitely interacting and talking at a high level with some of those people who create amazing food is wonderful. I love that. Yeah. But I'm really, really passionate about the people at home who are connecting with our brand. So and yeah, where we're really making a difference. I mean, we haven't really talked about flour yet, but stone milled flour is a product that people are just rediscovering now. And they've really taken it for granted, more so even than the whole grains and beans like chickpeas. But seeing people rediscover that and maybe they're able to eat it again after years of avoiding it. That so is incredibly rewarding. And I love those conversations. People are really passionate about their food. And it's great to be a part of. Yeah.
I mean, with this podcast, even before I started this podcast, if you are at all tuned into what's going on around this industry and just food in general, there is a major shift in the way people eat, the way people dine, the way people shop, all of those things. It just is changing drastically and dramatically. And I think it's great for a brand like yours because people generally, that's how they're shopping. They want to know everything. I sat down with, and I believe you guys are on the menu at Bellegarde Kitchen. I think you have some items on the menu there. I'm pretty sure. If not, you should be. But I'm pretty sure you are. And I sat down with Ruben, one of the owners and the head chef there, and he was saying how his customers, they want to know, like, okay, where does it come from? Who grew it? All these things, which I think a while ago were like painful questions to have to answer. But now I think for people like yourself or a chef like Ruben, there's a sense of pride to be able to tell their customers, like, hey guys, like this just came from so many miles away and this is the person that produced it, and give more context. And there's pride for you as a producer, I'm assuming, and someone like Ruben. But then also it creates so much excitement and pride, I think, in the end user as well, because they can see the links in the story about how their dollars are affecting and impacting lives around them, as opposed to something that they have no attachment to. Do you find that's been something that's kind of innately happened? Like you have these stories that are being created and you're creating more relationships that didn't exist before?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, chefs probably always did want to tell those stories, but they weren't being given any material that was usable, that the supply chains didn't exist. There hadn't been kind of a resurgence in innovation in those really traditional supply chains. And so they didn't have the stories to tell, and customers didn't know to ask. And so having, chefs more tuned in, chefs more passionate about their sourcing, it shows in the food. People ask more questions. People also come in to seek out brands like ours. I get questions all the time, like, where can I eat really good bread made with your flour in the city? And I'm coming to Vancouver, and where should I go? And I think it creates just a more satisfying experience altogether. You know, you don't turn your mind off when you eat food.
No.
You want to engage all of those senses. And I think having that background and hearing the stories, it makes for a much richer experience.
Yeah, I definitely want to come back to something you mentioned earlier about kind of being thrown in the deep end a bit with the business, but I want to deviate a bit first and go to the flour that you mentioned. And before we turn on the mics and before we set up, you were kind enough to take me in the back, or you introduced me to Chris, who is your jack of all trades, if I can say that. And Chris is back there working your absolute stunning mill. Tell the listeners and the viewers a bit about the product that you're producing with that, and then also the story of that piece of equipment as well, if you can.
Yeah. So we sourced a beautiful stone flour mill from a company in Austria. We decided really early on that we couldn't be a dry goods company without being a flour company. We really felt like the two were so closely linked, and that we could really make the most impact with flour. People tend to use it in higher quantities. They have a more sort of visceral connection, I think, to baking. So we set out really early on to find the best solution, the most amazing mill to create the best possible flour we could find. And there is kind of definitely a resurgence in the bread community with freshly milled flour. People are talking about it a lot more, and we knew we could be a leader in that space given the quality of wheat that's being produced in Canada and the quality of stories we really wanted to tell. So we set out to find this mill. We sourced it from Austria. It was the best solution for us, both in terms of logistics and production, but also in terms of storytelling. It's a beautiful piece of equipment.
Stunning, absolutely stunning.
Yeah, handcrafted out of wood. It really kind of had the provenance that we find in our dry goods, actually. So it had the kind of history that we look to when we source farming our grains as well. So a real great history, family owned company. We brought it over. We encountered a few hurdles getting it operational, but we're up and running now, and we're producing the best flour that I've ever tasted. Certainly it's producing the best baked goods I've ever tasted. And
so cool.
I mean, the bonus is they're really easy to digest and they make you feel really good.
I admittedly haven't tried the flour yet, but I am now going to go out and get it. Lindsay, my partner, and I love to do like pizza Fridays where we make our own dough.
Nice.
So I will, you guys can hold me to this, and I'll report back to Janna on this, but we will buy the flour and we will make our own dough with your flour. I'm super excited about it. And it was really cool watching it work. And like I was saying, again, I'm a bit ignorant to the whole production of flour. But the system back there seems so, I don't want to say antiquated, but it did, because I'm so used to seeing such mechanical things like gray and shiny and buttons and lights. And you were showing me just the details, like a little piece of leather and like a piece of rope. And I think there's so much beauty in that. And I think, like you said, that to me speaks more to your brand, or my exposure to your brand, than it would if I came back there and it was just like stainless steel and not a lot of, not a lot of like personality and like vibe and feeling. So it was really cool to see that. And I appreciate you showing me that. And I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. And I think, like you said, the change in the way people are looking at flowers and have looked at flowers now for the last few years, it'd be awesome if grain can be the one that facilitates them being reintroduced to something that they thought they couldn't enjoy.
Absolutely.
Whether it be pizza on a Friday night or cookies with their kids or whatever it is. So have you been able to do any like field tests with people that maybe have thought they were, if I can use the term, like gluten intolerant? Have you been able to see how that has affected them?
We It's actually happened very organically. We just receive feedback constantly.
Oh, cool.
We around Christmas was a really kind of special time. We had people contacting us to say that they're baking again for their families for the first time in a decade, or maybe for the first time since they've been grandparents, or what have you. I would say we hear it from someone new at least every week, depending on the week, saying that, you know, they were able to bake for a family member and the family member ate it with no trouble, or they themselves enjoyed a loaf of bread for the first time in a long time. So yeah, it's something we hear constantly. And it really kind of, it proves the hypothesis that we had, that the problem was never the grain. The problem was a super over industrialized, mechanized processing process. Yeah. And yeah, our bodies don't know what commercial flour is. We don't know what to do with it. And there's a lot of additives, but when you're really dealing with a whole grain and you treat it with a lot of respect, it's real food. It's a living product.
Yeah. It's almost like, and I just thought of this right now, listening to you describe it, it's almost like a chef taking a piece of protein or taking a vegetable and just kind of allowing for it to speak, doing what he or she needs to do to kind of create what they wanted to create, but not overcomplicating it, not processing quote unquote too much. And then I think the end result for as far as like tastes and flavors and what it does to your body is far more beneficial. I think the less we do, the better. And I've always been so challenged by that. And we can speak to this a bit, is why is it that something that isn't processed is so much more expensive than something that is? I just, like, in my mind, doesn't make sense. If something has to be like broken down, packaged, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, why is that cheaper than just the raw product? It's always been such a paradigm challenge for me.
Yeah.
And speaking to costs and prices, how do you guys deal with someone that wants to support grain and wants to buy your product, but they've been buying, I'll just use a brand like Robinhood, right, for years, and there's a discrepancy in the price? How do you guys deal with that as a company or just as people? Like, how do you deal with those challenges, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely something we get asked a lot. Ironically, not by our customers very often, but sometimes, especially in a grocery store setting, a traditional retail kind of setting. We're a premium brand, and we don't hide behind that. We celebrate it. Right. We try and provide as much value as we possibly can. Cool. But the reality is, with some of our products, and in fact, not all of them, they're more expensive than the commodity product you can buy. Right. And we stand behind it. We don't apologize for it. Part of it is our size and our scale. Definitely, big food producers buy in absolutely massive quantities. Right. They store the product for years. They may sell it again when the price goes up. It's treated truly as a commodity. Like a stock, yeah. A stock, oil and gas, and a resource, not a food source. Right. And so when we explain that we really treat the food and the growers like food and not like a commodity, people generally understand that there is a cost to that. Right. We buy things from the most recent season, the most recent growing season. Right. Dry goods don't have a shelf life. They can sit in warehouses and in bins on farms for literally decades. Crazy. And the grade and the cost at which they are sold at does not change, but things when you actually go to cook and eat them, they do change. Beans, for example, break down and get mushy instead of staying really firm. When you're cooking white beans or black beans, for example, I've experienced it all the time where you put them in your pot, you start boiling them, and they turn to foam, and they you end up with this like beany water and not actual beans. And there's no wonder that people just go for a can every time. So there is a trade-off. There is a true difference. There's a difference in taste. And definitely with flour, there's a difference in flavor that's very noticeable. There's a difference in digestibility. So while it seems like the products are the same with just a brand or a nice box or a nice bag and a nice website, there really is a difference. And it requires a lot of education, and, you know, we feel really up for that challenge. It's what excites us. We want people to become more aware of this category and really understand the nuances and the differences, because they're not very visible. Yeah. But they are incredibly tangible when you start working with the product.
You said something that I think is so imperative. You said education. And that's something that I'm so passionate about. And I really hope this podcast facilitates. And I appreciate you being so candid with your answers, because we are a premium brand and we're going to stand behind that. And I think shows like this and different outlets that you have on your own, as far as Instagram and social media and your website, you're able to tell that story. But the education piece is so imperative, to be able to speak to the end consumer and say, this is why it costs that much. It's like, why does the halibut cost $35 on a plate? Well, let me tell you why. There's a reason to that. And I think, like you said, most consumers now, generally speaking, are far more knowledgeable, and they ask those questions and they do understand. But there's still that sector, I think, of the community that still is challenged by, why is it that much more expensive? And I hate to say it, and I would love to facilitate change somehow, some way within my time on this earth, that people just can't afford those things. And I would love to facilitate that change. I don't know how yet, but definitely is something I'm going to work towards. Like, how can we get grain, your products, in everyone's home? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And not sacrifice what grain is and what it's all about. That to me would be such a beautiful thing. And not just grain, all these products that are really doing what is supposed to be done, letting the products speak for themselves. I got off on a tangent there, but I want to go back to something you did mention about the switch from quitting your job to going all in on this, which I think resonates with a lot of people where we are currently in the world today. People are thinking about, hey, I'm really passionate about this. I think I could really make a go at this, but there's that fear that holds them back. So how did you exercise that fear, or did you have any fear, or were you very confident when the day came to make the switch from the world you were in then to the world you're in now?
Yeah. Did I have fear? I don't know that it necessarily manifested as fear, but certainly uncertainty.
Okay.
But I was also blindly confident that
Awesome.
Everything was going to work out. And I cannot say that it has worked out the way I planned it to.
Okay.
Are things working themselves out? Of course. But
Yeah.
nothing kind of went to plan, of course.
Yeah.
I definitely had a lot of fear, not fear. That's uncertainty is the word,
Yeah.
not fear. But it kind of came to the point where I was doing two things kind of badly.
Yes.
Like I couldn't give all of myself to my full-time job, and I couldn't give all of myself to my side
hustle.
project,
Yeah.
my hustle.
Yeah.
And that became very draining, even more so than the work itself. I just couldn't handle the pressure of not meeting my own expectations on both fronts.
Totally.
And I really knew that this business was not going to take off if we couldn't give it what it needed.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it seemed like the only option. And so I accepted that. And there's been a lot of sacrifices along the way. Financially, I'm really fortunate to have a husband who has a full-time job, because I don't know how people do it without some steady income.
Right.
That's just the reality of it. I don't know how regular people do it,
Right.
without having a paycheck coming in every 2 weeks.
Right.
It certainly wouldn't have worked for our family any other way, because entrepreneurship and small businesses are really uncertain, especially the way we did it. We've self-financed this whole process. So
Right.
Of course there are other ways to do it. But this is what we have done to date. And that's definitely not saying that's how we'll proceed in the future, but yeah, it's overwhelming,
Yeah.
especially in the beginning.
Do you think it would be a success if it wasn't so sink or swim, like the way you described, you Googling things and YouTubing things and just having to figure like GST, like how do I do that? Do you think if you were quote unquote more prepared, you'd be where you're at today? Or was there a bit of beauty, and did you discover a lot of things through that kind of, I don't want to say darkness, but those struggles?
Yeah. I mean, I am kind of the type of person that doesn't want to pay someone to do something that I don't know how to do.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
if I'm outsourcing something, I want to make sure that if something happens,
You can do
I
it.
can pick it back up again.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm going to have to relinquish that as we grow a
Yeah.
little bit. But that was how I wanted to do it in the beginning. I didn't feel like I could confidently ask someone to do a job that I couldn't do. And so I felt really strongly that I needed to figure things out. And there were some things that I was perfectly okay at, and some things I was terrible at.
Right.
Mostly like reading government documents. Not my strength at all.
Yeah.
And so, we've adapted as we went. But for me, that was really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how does it work now if you and Shira are like a 2-person hip hop duo? Who's like the hype man and who's like the front? Like, how does it work with you guys in the business?
Yeah. I mean, I've been told that we have a really unique dynamic and relationship, and it's something that neither of us take for granted at all. We are a rock star team. Like,
Right.
I can say that really confidently.
Yeah.
Our banter and the way we work through problems is really, really healthy and really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Shira is 100% our sales and marketing person. Like,
Cool.
if there's going to be a customer issue or, a campaign, or she runs our social media, which is, really, really expertly executed.
Yeah.
And so she's all of that kind of voice and tone and imagery.
Mm-hmm.
She really owns all that, and she excels at it. And she's also unbelievable at customer service and
Awesome.
deals with people in a way that's really, really special. Where we complement each other is she comes up with a million ideas,
Okay.
and they kind of all stop at me, and I'm the gatekeeper of where we go. And it wouldn't work any other way.
Right.
Because I'm not coming up with as many ideas as she is. And
Right.
if we followed all of her ideas, we would have zero focus.
Yeah.
and she recognizes that. So.
It's interesting. I feel like in duos, that is just the way it is, whether it's relationships or business, well, like intimate relationships or friendships. Because I know for myself, my partner and I, she is, I'm Shira and you're Lindsay, or Lindsay is you. Whereas I have 1,000 ideas, and she's the one that's like grabs my head and she's like, okay, pick one
and
let's do it really well.
Exactly.
So I'll come up with the ideas, then she'll help me facilitate the execution. So is that kind of how it works for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And then there are, there's other areas that I take care of, mostly things like financing and human resources,
Right.
and kind of all of those operational things that need to stop somewhere. But when it comes to strategy, and when it comes to focus, and when it comes to brand gatekeeping, we really complement each other there.
Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah. And because we share a lot of the same values, we when we say no to each other, it's coming from a really honest place in what's best for the company. Like, we don't have any hard feelings about that type of thing, where things
Right.
it's like, no, that's not right. And I think we both know it for these reasons. And so
Right.
that is so key. Like, we really share those values.
That's cool. I think in this industry, and when I say industry, I mean hospitality, more so in my exposure to like the restaurant side of things, there's a lot of egos, but I think in business in general, there can be a lot of egos, and especially in partnerships, they can be very challenging. It can be a very challenging dance, if you will. So do you ever find that has been an issue? Has there ever been ego? I just know for myself and partnerships that I've had in the past, it can be very, very challenging and can sometimes ruin both the business and the personal relationship. Has there ever been, or since day one, have you guys kind of really understood each other and respected each other's opinions, and it's just worked out?
Definitely, we've always respected each other's opinions. I think we both really value our opposite qualities,
Okay.
if I can say that. And we have from day one, and recognize them really early on. But I mean, ego is something you encounter every day. And I think we try to be really self-aware about it. It's like, is that something that we're doing? What are the reasons behind that decision or that thought? And ego is something we talk about a lot, because we don't want to fall victim to it.
Right.
And we want to constantly be challenging each other and the people we're around and we deal with. I mean, I would say it's become almost a non-issue in our partnership.
Right.
But it's definitely something that we talk about all the time with people we encounter, whether it's just business associates, mentors,
Right.
legal advisors, no one in this organization wants to be right for the sake of being right.
Cool. I
We
like
really try to make the best decision, the most thoughtful decision that we can for the company.
Cool. Can we add some color to, as I look on the wall here, and it's always been so apparent to me when I see your brand, is just like the lettering. Like, how'd you choose that? How'd you choose the name? how did you choose the artist that depicts the farmers that are on your packaging? So how did that all come to be?
Yeah, the brand came together really effortlessly. You know, I think we agonized a little bit over the name, our domain. I mean, we certainly didn't take any of these decisions lightly.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the logo, ironically, required no discussion. I think it was Shira. She was holding a Sharpie. She's constantly holding a Sharpie in a notebook, and she just drew it. She just wrote grain. And I can't remember. Did we have our tagline by then? No, we didn't. We just had the words. And I had a background in design, so I knew my way around Illustrator, things like that. I kind of mocked it up in a few different ways, and it was done. We were done with the logo. We probably talked about it the least. We were just like, yep, that's perfect. That's what we want. So that was a really easy choice. The farmer drawings, it's amazing. It was just we were building our website, and we were like, how do we capture this traceability that we're just going on and on about, that no one knows what we're talking about yet, because we've just started. But what does traceability mean? What do people think of when they think of farmers and farms? And it was like, well, should we put a picture of the farmers? And we're like, well, operationally, that's really hard. Yeah. How are we going to get photos of these people that meet our brand standards, that really look good on our website with our very limited budget? So it was like, well, can we sketch them? I think it was Shira's idea. I'm pretty sure it was. And then we were working with a graphic designer just to kind of get our stuff all together. Yeah. And we're like, do you sketch? Can you sketch people? Right. And she said, I'll try. And it just happened that way. Wow. Yeah. And we've since worked with a couple other artists, but tried to maintain that look. Yeah. And yeah, it's something that people connected with right away. They constantly talk about it, and I think that's what they think about when they think of our brand now.
Yeah, I feel like it's like the Nike swoosh for you guys.
Totally. And that's,
which is really big to say.
Huge. Yeah. I mean, I've never heard that before, but that's really cool.
Yeah, for me, like when I like I was saying before we turned the mics on, like when I see your brand and when I've seen your brand, I've always been excited of it. It's always appealed to me as a consumer. It catches my eye. But for me, it's like that, when I see that lettering, I think of your brand. And when I see those caricatures, I see your brand. Now, it also reminds me of Natalie, who's been on the show before, from East Van Jam, with her characters. Now, they're very different, and that speaks to her brand. Just like the way they're drawn, that's the way that's facilitated. It just like speaks to what she's doing. And I feel like for some reason, I don't know what it is, if it's like the boxes you guys use, or like the coloring. It speaks to, for me, it really does depict that relationship with the farmer. I don't know if it's like Canadiana or something. So I don't know if you've done any of this on purpose, but for me, as just a consumer up until this point, that's what it has meant to me. So I don't know if that was ever your like modus operandi, but that's kind of what I see when I see your brand. And it's beautiful. I love it. It's simple. It's cool. And yeah, it tells a story, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, ultimately, it also really holds us accountable, because we can't put product in a box that has the wrong face on it.
Yeah.
And that's something.
Has that happened?
Sure. Like we certainly have had boxes where it's like, no, well, we can't use those anymore. We have to make new ones because, that farmer ran out of French lentils, for example, and we're switching. So yeah, I mean, if you think of any other way you buy dry goods, it's certainly not with the promise of the grower being on the front.
Yeah.
Or any product.
Yeah.
Truly. True. And so it holds us accountable, and I think it's a real commitment to our customers.
Yeah. You guys should have like a grain coffee table book.
Maybe we will.
Oh, I would like 10%, please. No, it is. Like I said, I do celebrate what you guys have done with the brand. It's absolutely fantastic. Sharpies. Shira always has Sharpies. So shout out to Sharpie if you're listening. Hit Shira up for a sponsorship and Send her a pallet of Sharpies, please. For those people that haven't been exposed to the brand yet, or maybe wherever they are in the world listening to this, cannot go to their retail store and buy it. First off, let's list through what you have as far as products, and then how can those people that haven't tried your product try your product?
Great question. So one thing I will start with is we do not and will never sell flour in a grocery store.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I was unaware of this.
Yeah.
Good thing I asked.
It's a real brand differentiator. And the reason for that is because if you are a customer and you place an order online, we mill your flour that day.
Oh, amazing.
And ship it out as close to that date as possible, usually that day or the next day.
So cool.
And the reason for that is because our flour is perishable.
Right.
It is a product that is full of oils, and if left on grocery store shelves, they will go rancid, and it will impact both flavor and digestibility. So that is a big difference in our product,
right,
and in our brand promise. So we do sell our boxes in grocery stores, and that is limited to 6 products. So we have 6 products in grocery stores locally here in Vancouver and some places across Canada.
Right.
That is chickpeas,
Yeah.
quinoa, layered lentils. So that is a green, like your standard green lentil, French lentils,
Okay.
farro,
Yeah.
and wheat berries.
Very cool.
That is the whole grain. They are completely intact. They are not perishable.
Cool.
The flour is available through our website, or you can eat the finished product in restaurants here locally throughout BC. We also host pop-up shops.
Yes. Very cool.
We have one coming up in August on the 25th.
At
Di Beppe on Cordova.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, they have been really gracious to lend us their space during the day.
Awesome.
The beauty of the pop-up shops is we work with a local baker that uses our flour to produce 100% freshly milled sourdough loaves.
Oh, delicious.
Yeah, and we have other baking that tastes delicious. So that's a really great opportunity to taste the difference that flour makes without making something yourself.
Right.
Also on our website, we sell a whole bunch of other things that aren't available in stores, like black beans and white beans. Let me think, spelt berries, like some of the more niche kind of grains that our restaurant partners have access to, but we don't sell in grocery stores.
Very cool. And the website is?
Eatgrain.ca.
Eatgrain.ca. I'm really intrigued by the flour now. I think it's kind of like, it's like that nightclub that doesn't have a sign, it just has like a light, and you have to kind of know where to get it. So now I'm really excited to place my order online.
That's a great analogy, actually.
I'm all about analogies. Nike swooshes and nightclubs with no name.
Perfect. Yeah.
And eventually a grain coffee table book of all the faces that have produced.
It's a great idea.
Remember, I'm the Shira. There's no execution. I just give the ideas and you pick which one you want to do.
I would be shutting some of them down if you were Shira.
The show is called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast. So I have for you, Janna, and I did not prompt you on this, but I have for you the half a dozen have-tos. Stick with me here.
Okay.
So I need from you your personal 1 to 6. You can choose 1 or you can go all the way to 6 of your have-tos for listeners. They have to do something you've experienced in your life that you want our listeners to eat, to watch, to listen to wear. Something that you've done and you've experienced in your life that you feel like our listeners have to do, whether it is grain related, food related, whatever. 1 to 6.
Ooh, okay.
And you can tap out at 1 if you want.
I feel like I'm a very moderate person, so I don't usually get too excited about things. But I will say people in my life know that I'm very passionate about astrology.
Oh, okay. Said with a little bit of shame, but okay.
Yeah, it is something I really like. And I can go into why. I mean, I think
please do.
Whether or not you believe that you embody your sign or you're compatible with your partner because of their sign, whatever.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's about self-awareness.
Okay.
I think it's about saying, okay, well, this is what this body says that my personality is like.
Okay.
And is it like that or is it not like that?
Right.
And I think looking at yourself really introspectively helps you in a lot of situations.
100%. Self-awareness is
it
big.
Totally plays into that ego conversation. So really like, oh, am I really stubborn? Or am I not? And could I be less stubborn? Like, why am I so stubborn? So I think that's a have to. Like, I think really looking at ourselves critically but kindly, and astrology is a really fun easygoing way to do it. So I have a bit of an astrology email that I send out to my friends, and
Oh, so cool.
we joke about it all the time. Also, you have to follow Co-Star Astrology on Instagram. They are
Co-Star
hilarious.
Astrology.
Yes.
COSTAR
Yeah.
Astrology. Okay.
They just make hilarious memes about the
Astrology?
signs, and
Oh,
we
okay.
laugh about it constantly here.
What
So-
can you tell me about me being a Taurus?
Okay, so I don't actually know very many Tauruses.
Oh, well, hello.
I need to learn more. I don't know anything about Tauruses.
Oh.
We laugh because in our office, I'm a Cancer. Shira and Chris are both Virgos, and we had 2 Scorpios working here as well. So I'm really, really up to date on all of their qualities and how
Okay.
we work together.
Right. But not so much a Taurus.
But I don't know anything about Tauruses. You'll have to tell me.
I don't know. I'm not a big, I can tell you a lot about myself. I don't know how much it applies to astrology. So
Well, when we're done here, I'm going to look it up on Co-Star right away.
And deviating a bit, I know you mentioned you listened to the episode that I did with Jackie Kai Ellis from Boku Bakery. Shout out Jackie, what's up? And she she said one of her have-tos was to go get my tarot cards read, which I never had done. And I went and did. Jackie, I did it. I did it with my mother-in-law and my partner, Lindsay. And I have to say, I was pretty pumped on what I heard. So,
Really?
Yeah.
I heard that and I was like, man, I've never done that, but I would
Is that
love it.
Is that of the same ilk or no?
I know
Or-
nothing about the origin of tarot cards. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know what it's based on, but I love people telling me things about myself. So
so cool.
I would love it. So I'm going to look it up also.
Hit them
Thank you,
up.
Jackie.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. Hit them up. It was really cool. Really cool experience. I've never done it before. Sorry, I interrupted your have to. So that's 2 was 1, some inner reflection, some knowledge about who you are, maybe astrology, maybe not. 2 was follow Co-Star
Astrology. Sure, that's a 2. Yeah, I'll take that. That's a good one. 3 is I think everyone has to bake bread one time.
Very cool.
Minimum. I think there's something so empowering about making such a basic food staple.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not picky if it's in your bread maker or
Right.
it's just a yeasted no knead loaf, or if it's full blown sourdough with a starter you made yourself.
Right.
I think there's something really empowering about making your own bread.
100%.
Just a quick shout out. We have a great no knead recipe on our blog.
Check it out. No need recipe. Do you know anything about I'm going to talk about pizza dough for a second. Do you know anything about pizza dough that doesn't use a yeast? And the only reason I ask is because I'm really addicted to the pizza show on Munchies. Shout out to Munchies on YouTube. And there's a guy in San Francisco, I want to say, or New York. I can't remember. But he doesn't use any yeast, just flour and water. That is it. Have you ever had any experience with that with your product or anyone that's used your product to do that?
Yes. So I imagine they use a sourdough culture to get the
I don't know.
leavening.
I don't know.
That's usually what people use instead of yeast. So Fiore on 12th in South Granville,
Okay.
she, Alexandra is, I believe her name is the chef there. She is doing Vancouver's only sourdough pizza.
Oh, okay.
So she is using a yeast-free dough and it's delicious. It's crispy and really fluffy, if you want to use that word.
Yeah.
It's delicious. I have never made a sourdough pizza, but absolutely you can.
Cool.
So it requires just a bacteria culture in the
Right.
form that you develop over time with
Right.
flour and water that you feed daily, and you develop a bacteria that is the original yeast.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I think this guy as well, I think he's using kind of similar to what you guys have in the back here with the mill. He's using that like directly in his restaurant, like
Yeah.
fresh milling it and then making I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted again. I apologize. I won't do it again. That was 3. Do you have any more to add of your have-tos? Like places you travel to, dinners you've had, records you've listened to, the people are like, you got to check this out.
Yes, I have traveled places. I always love coming home though, so
Mhm.
I can't say that you have to go anywhere. I mean, I think you have to swim in the ocean.
Okay.
I love swimming.
Yeah.
I love the ocean.
Okay.
The best ocean I've ever swam in is on the south coast of Africa.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, on the Indian Ocean side,
Mhm.
but at the very southern tip.
Wow.
It's the most cleanest, saltiest, purest, warmest waviest water.
And is
Just
it kind of
amazing.
like that postcard blue water or no?
Well, it's quite white actually. It looks a lot like the ocean here because it's very wavy. Or
Right.
on Tofino, let's say Tofino, it's not that still Caribbean water in,
Right,
in
okay.
any way. It's
Yeah.
quite wild, very regenerative.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So I love swimming in the ocean. You have to be nice to people.
Yes.
I think that's important.
That's 5. Can we go all the way and do 6?
Yeah, I think you have to wear sunscreen.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really passionate about sun protection.
Okay.
I'm a Cancer. Can we go back to the
Yes,
astrology? I'm a
yes.
Cancer. I'm very risk averse.
Right. Oh, is that part of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cautious. We're crabs. Stay in our shell.
Which is interesting because you're an entrepreneur.
I know it doesn't really make sense, but I'm making it work.
Yeah.
But wear sunscreen. It's just, it's the best choice.
What are your thoughts on the statement of what you put on your body goes in your body?
Yeah, I'm pretty passionate about skincare, I will say, and keeping it natural and effective. And but I mean, I will say, if I was given the choice of using the sunscreen that I choose to buy, which is mineral, it's safe, it's natural, it's expensive,
Right.
or wearing no sunscreen, I would choose the chemical stuff over that.
Ooh, really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. Good
I
to
mean,
know.
I wouldn't choose it long term. I'd wear a hat, but I also wear hats.
Amazing. I'm learning so much. The second part of that question, there's more, is the half a dozen haven't yet. So kind of like a bucket list thing. So 1 to half a dozen of your haven't yet, things you haven't experienced yet.
I mean, I feel like this one could go on and on because there's a lot.
Okay.
I haven't yet. Okay, well, I've never done any drugs,
Okay.
any kind of mind altering substance other than alcohol. So, I mean, I'm not in a hurry, but there might be a day when I feel like
I feel like you and Jackie
appropriate.
Ellis need to talk because she was talking about
ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca, yeah. Maybe you
Yeah.
and Jackie should do an ayahuasca trip together.
I mean, that would be wild. I'm not going to say that wouldn't be crazy. Maybe that's in the cards one day. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
exactly.
I've never done drugs.
Okay. But you're open to it, but in like a controlled environment. and,
Absolutely.
like, whoever's facilitating it has been there, done that.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I have not yet made a big enough difference. I would say that for sure. That's a
Okay.
bit heavier, but
Yeah,
I feel
no,
like
that's awesome.
I feel like I have a lot to do in terms of, making the world a better place, which is a lofty goal, but one that I feel strongly about.
I think you're on your way right now, just with your brand and what you're doing, the lives you're impacting of like the farmers, for example, that you're supporting and bringing. You're kind of making them like mini celebrities, which
Yeah.
is really cool.
Absolutely. And that's what we want to do. We want to do it with a bigger impact for sure. And
Yeah.
that's in the plans and that's in our goals personally. Both Shira and I feel that way, but also that's definitely the company's goal.
Yeah.
I haven't yet. I've never been to Australia.
Okay.
I don't know that I plan to go in
Yeah.
the near future, but that's one country that I
Yeah.
certainly have not visited. I can cross off being on a podcast.
Yes. Thank you for facilitating that. I was happy to be the one that made that happen. Big lifetime goal, I'm sure.
I'm struggling to think of things, but I know there's a million.
No, I mean, that's good. Those are quality ones. I think the
Okay.
biggest one for me, the biggest takeaway of what you just said and resonates with me so much is making a difference. And again, I don't really fully understand what that means for myself, but I know for certain, especially now having a daughter and I desperately want to, and I know I will leave this world a better place. It's just a matter of how and what that looks like. And kind of like we were saying earlier, and I forget what it was. I think it was maybe just this business and where it is now. You were saying that it hasn't really turned out how you expected it to, or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but I think it's such a poignant and beautiful statement in that we have ideas and we have visions, and that doesn't always look the way we thought it was going to. Like getting there. I think it's I want to say it's Tony Robbins quote, and it is be rigid on the outcome but flexible on the path.
Yes. That's a great one. I've never heard that.
I love it. I love it. It makes so much sense. So you have to be, like, there's so many variables, right? In life, in business, in anything. And I think we really have to be able to allow for some bobbing and weaving and ducking, because that's just the world we live in.
Absolutely. And I think you have to remain really flexible as an entrepreneur. Otherwise you won't survive. Mm-hmm. There's just no getting around that. Hurdles pop up every day, completely out of left field. You never could have written them in your SWOT analysis if you've ever written a business plan. And you are constantly ducking and weaving and finding resilience and figuring out how to redefine that path.
Mm-hmm. For some reason, it just popped into my head, and I won't put too long of a tail on this kite, but I was reminded of the story of Spanx. You know Spanx?
Of course.
Yeah, being from the fashion background.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know the Spanx story, but apparently she had at one point went and filled an order with, I want to say, like a Macy's, but she didn't have the product, and they needed, like, I'm talking like an obscene amount of product. And then she had to go find like a new producer or two new producers. Has that ever happened to you guys where you maybe make a sale, or Shira makes a contact, and you guys are almost like laughing at you having to bob and duck and weave so much to make it happen? Like, where are we going to get these chickpeas from? How's this going to happen? We're running low on this. Or has it always kind of been, no, this is like, we've been able to fulfill everything. We've been able to kind of stay above water? Or has there ever been a moment where it's been an oh shit moment?
Oh yeah, we have oh shit moments all the time. Never to the scale I would think of as Sarah Blakely at Spanx and Macy's. I follow Sarah Blakely on Instagram.
So you know her well.
She's so inspiring. I've never heard that story though, so that's
on
interesting.
A podcast that I listened to. I'll send it to you, and you can listen to it. She tells that story more articulate than I did, but yeah, really interesting. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I think just it's, as entrepreneurs, if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, you are prone to biting off more than you can chew.
Right.
And a lot of times you're forced to take opportunities that you might not know exactly how you're going to make it work in the moment. Never to that scale have we been in that situation, but absolutely. It's like, well, we've got the possibility of a big client, but we need this many chickpeas. And I mean, I'll just say, chickpeas are a great example. We've come off 2 really awful harvest years of chickpeas in Canada.
Oh no.
And so, I wish that I could have foreseen that when we were making our business plan, and chickpeas became our iconic product in the early days. Because there has definitely been moments of saying, we don't know where those chickpeas are coming from. And we have really strict sourcing guidelines. And so,
right.
No, we're not going to get them from Oregon. Mm-hmm. And no, we're not going to get them from, 5 years ago.
Right.
From someone we don't know. So, there's absolutely been moments of panic in that sense. Nothing we haven't been able to surf. But yeah, I think that you're just prone to it as entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
We certainly are.
One of the last questions I'll ask you is, do you have any advice for, I'm going to say females, because I think there's I hold my mother on a very high pedestal. She raised my sister and I hold my wife and my sister on such a high pedestal. I think women just embody such amazing power and very inspiring to me. So do you have any information or any tips for female entrepreneurs that are looking to make the leap, whether it be in the food space or anything? What would you say is one word of advice you could give to these young women to help facilitate that push to just go do it?
I think, that's so tough. It's something I think about constantly, just being a woman in the small business industry,
right.
food aside, and food makes it even more kind of unique. I think one thing is we don't have enough people in the room that are listening to pitches, that are listening to or who make the decisions about lending or not lending. We don't have enough people in the room that are women who are the true users of women founded companies is what I really find. And so you might encounter a situation in a room full of very typical, probably white men who don't think your idea is any good,
right?
Because they don't know your problem. They have not felt that problem. They have not experienced your solution. And I would just say find a different room.
Right.
Find people that believe in your idea. Find people that have lived through the problem you're solving. And yeah, just keep looking for those people. They are there. They're hard to find. Email me if you need a list of them.
Awesome.
You know, we've done a lot of good work in this city trying to find out the people that really support female entrepreneurs, and we, you know some of the ones that don't, and they are there, and there is support, there is money there is resources for female entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in general. But I mean, I really advocate for female entrepreneurs because I think it is remarkably hard in ways that are not easily identifiable and not easily measured and not easily fixed. We're talking about very ingrained biases that you can't even really call out because you can't see them, but you feel them.
You can't articulate it. Yeah.
You cannot articulate it. We don't have words for it. So yeah, find a different room. Find people that believe in you. I mean, if you can't, you may need to rework your product, but ultimately, I think that's part of finding a new path. But I mean, there are people in this city and in this country and in the world that believe in the products we're solving. And Sarah Blakely is an amazing example at Spanx. Men don't have those problems. They would not put value on that product, and she has turned it into $1 billion business.
Yeah, she is crushing it.
Yeah.
And shout out to her husband as well, Jesse Itzler, who's author, and he's written a couple books, Living with the Seal and Living with the Monks, and just really, really cool. So I definitely think those two are like a power couple.
Absolutely.
Very inspiring. And thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's words like that I think listeners to this podcast, especially women, take a lot from. So thank you so much. And maybe we could even say you could be that person, or Shira could be that person for one of these young women looking to kind of break through.
We want to be. We absolutely want to be.
Very cool. That could be the change that you're wanting to facilitate.
Yeah.
Who knows? Okay. I don't want to keep you for too long, because I know you do have a life outside of podcasting. But before I let you go, I did want to say thank you so much for allowing me again into your space and holding space for me and this project. And I want to celebrate you, Shira, and your company and your brand. I think what you guys are doing now, I have even better understanding of what and why. I want to celebrate you, and I want to thank you guys for doing it. You're facilitating change in a very challenging space, and I take a lot of pride in supporting brands like yours and bringing brands like yours to the forefront. So I'm very proud to have you on the podcast, and I can't wait to have this released and help fly that flag for you guys. So thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for not doing fashion anymore. And thank you for, again, holding space for me. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being interested, and thank you for putting yourself out there in the form of this podcast. I think, we need more people doing that.
Yeah, I think it is. And if anything, it's a great avenue. And my intention with this podcast is to provide the stories for people like you and Shira and the Grain crew, for people out there to better understand why it is you do what you guys do. But before I let you go, where can people find you? How can they connect with you? I know August 25th at the Pepe is the pop-up shop, so they can try flowers and fresh baked goods there with the flour. Yeah.
The best place to keep up with us is on Instagram at Eat Grain.
Okay.
We have a newsletter. We send out great recipe content. So that's, you can sign up for that at www.eatgrain.ca. And that's where you can find all of our products as well.
Amazing. And if you want to try the dry goods available in most
quality retailers,
quality retails in Vancouver and BC.
Definitely the independents here really support us. So Donald's, Famous Foods, Spud.
Cool.
Great places to find us.
And the flowers, as Janna mentioned, you guys can order online and they'll be shipped out to you ground fresh and then shipped out to you ASAP.
Absolutely.
Which is super unique as far as I know, as far as flour is concerned. No?
We're the only ones.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you, Janna. Thank you, Grain Crew. And thank you guys for tuning in each and every week. Please be sure to tune in next week for a brand new episode. Until then, be good and do good. That's it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was great.
Wonderful.